Hey Paul, this is the Mass Analyst. Good video. You raised some very good points. One other point I'd like to add to that, and this comes from my watching the same drama that you've watched unfold. My Reality Bites received a DMCA complaint against one of her videos from Zizzle LLC. Zizzle is a toy company, and she had featured one of the toys in one of her videos. Turns out that Zizzle never heard of her. They never had anything to do with YouTube. They had nothing to do with the DMCA notice filed against her. Somebody, we have no idea who it was, but somebody filed a DMCA against her using Zizzle's name, and YouTube just passed the DMCA along to her without doing an ounce of investigation as to whether the DMCA was valid or not. Which brings us to a real danger, something that everybody should be aware of. If you get a DMCA taking down one of your videos, your first response might be to file a counter notice. That's the only way you're going to get your video up. And if you don't file counter notices when DMCAs are filed against your videos, well, if you get 3 strikes against you, you're in great danger of losing your YouTube account, of being suspended forever. So there's a powerful incentive to file a counter notice. Now, unfortunately, when you file a counter notice, you have to sign your name, address, and phone number to it, and YouTube will then automatically turn that information over to the individual who filed the DMCA. Not all YouTube's fault, by the way. This is what the DMCA law requires in order for YouTube to gain protection against copyright lawsuits. But they'll just turn it right over, so whoever sent that DMCA has got your docs. Trouble is, that person may not be who you think you're responding to. That person may be an enemy of yours, somebody who wishes you harm. I can imagine a scenario, for example. Suppose there's a battered wife or a woman who's running away from an abusive boyfriend. She picks up, moves, and leaves, goes to another home, maybe goes outside the city or whatever. And she makes videos about this. Well, the boyfriend or the husband comes across her videos, and he really wants to know where she's at. So maybe he's hired a private investigator or what have you to try and track her down so he can hunt her down and, well, possibly kill her, whatever. But he's had no success. But he's stumbled across, or he's found her video online on YouTube, and so he sends in a DMCA. But instead of signing his name, he signs Viacom's name to it. So he sends it to YouTube, and then YouTube will just forward the DMCA notice to her after removing her video. So she goes, that's funny. I didn't use any of Viacom's material. That must be a mistake. I'll send him my counter notice. So she puts down her name and address and phone number and hands it off to YouTube. YouTube, smart-salutely, sends that information directly to the boyfriend, thinking without an ounce of investigation as to whether or not it's Viacom or not. The boyfriend knows where she is, hunts her down like a dog, and slays her. Not a real likely scenario, but certainly within the realm of possibility, especially given YouTube's practice of not doing an ounce of investigation. So this is kind of a cautionary tale. Anyone who receives a DMCA, the first thing you should do is contact the party who allegedly DMCA'd you in order to verify that they did indeed send the DMCA, that they were indeed the person behind or the organization behind the DMCA. And if it wasn't them, then you want to think long and hard about sending a counter notice. So that's one point. This is something that everybody should be aware of. The other thing is, it would be really nice to see YouTube/Google, if a situation like this is brought to their attention, if they would work with law enforcement officials to try and nab the sucker, if they would try and actually file a lawsuit against such a person for abusing their process, for abusing their system, for using them as a tool in order to possibly commit murder or violence or extortion or whatever. Now, you and I and a lot of people really don't have the type of resources behind us to pursue this in court. Well, maybe you do, Paul, but a lot of people don't. Going to court costs thousands and thousands of dollars. It also opens one up to all sorts of harassment uh, that you may not want to necessarily go through. But unless you have the resources and the time to go through it, a lot of people will just let it slide. They're not going to file the counter notice, what have you. What's really needed is to be able to send a message to those people who do this sort of thing that this is not going to be tolerated. Now, if YouTube were to actually go and turn around and try and help the police locate this individual, if they were to file a civil lawsuit against this individual for the abusive process, that would send a message. That might be a deterrent to future use. But unless YouTube gets off its ass and actually does something to try and help the community, this sort of thing is going to happen again and again and again. So in the meantime, everybody, if you get a DMCA, verify with the person who sent the DMCA complaint that indeed that they were behind it and it wasn't just some clown who's trying to get your docs illegally. Well, this has been the Mass Analyst, under and in.